I'm joined now by Congressman Jamie Raskin, member of the January 6th Select Committee. Congressman Raskin, first let's just start with those facts and my interpretation of them. So what you said at Georgetown the other day really caught my eye and a lot of people's eye. What did you mean? Why do you find those 6 words chilling? What is your understanding months into this investigation of the meaning of that moment?
Well, Trump had tried multiple different efforts to overthrow Biden's majority in the Electoral College. They had tried to intimidate and browbeat election officials like Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger in Georgia. That was caught on tape. Everybody heard Trump saying, you know, just find me 11,781 votes. That's all I want. That didn't work. There was the plan to try to get the military to seize the election machinery and to rerun the election. They ran that through the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, which is what led to his aborted effort to install a new attorney general over the attorney general that he didn't have. So there were all of these different efforts going on. And then it finally came down to everything focused on Mike Pence. That was the Hail Mary play, or what they were calling the Green Bay sweep. They were going to throw everything in there at Mike Pence, and they were going to try to pressure him and coerce him into rejecting Electoral College votes in a way that would set the stage for a failure of a majority in the Electoral College, and then kicking the whole thing into the House of Representatives under the 12th Amendment for a so-called contingent election. Okay, so that was the whole thing. And when we got to the floor at 1 o'clock on January 6th, I was very attentive to what was Mike Pence going to do. And he ended up, you know, sending us this memo, which went out to everybody in Congress saying he couldn't do essentially what Donald Trump was asking him to do. But the thing that really blew my mind is when we started hearing the crowds chanting, "Hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence." And it's just struck me as so bizarre that you would have a pro-Trump mob outside chanting against the vice president. And how would they know that Mike Pence was now the proper target of their wrath? How would they know that they were supposed to be mobilizing this effort against the vice president? But, you know, those orders were clearly coming from above, and it went through not just the political coup side of the operation, but the violent insurrection side of the operation. So when I heard that he said, "I'm not getting in that car," that was utterly chilling to me. Those are 6 of the most chilling words in American history to me, because they were trying to remove him from the situation. And of course, there had been this effort to try to get Trump just to invoke martial law under the Insurrection Act.
Yeah, the motion for summary judgment talks about this meeting with this individual, Mr. Ornato, with Meadows. I just remember Mr. Ornato, this is Ms. Hutchinson's testimony, I just remember Mr. Ornato coming in and saying that we had intel reports saying there could potentially be violence on the 6th, and Mr. Meadows said, all right, let's talk about it. And I guess the question is to you, like, what is your committee's understanding, your understanding of the significance of that warning or of Mr. Ornato's role?
Well, I can't say, because we really have not discussed that yet, and we're not there yet. But the committee is very focused on the outbreak of violence and what were the intimations of violence, what was the planning for violence that took place among some of the domestic violent extremist groups, including some of those that have been prosecuted and some of the people who have decided to cooperate and turn state's evidence. So we're trying to put that together. This was a marriage between an inside political coup at the highest levels of the administration with street thugs and hooligans and neo-fascists.
It's striking, reading some of the text, and we're going to talk about some of those from the chief of staff, that it's very clear that Mark Meadows is essentially the intermediary for much of this discussion. He is the person who's next to the president. His own son, of course, desperately texting Mark Meadows to try to get to his dad, right? So his testimony, or lack thereof, his refusal to comply with congressional subpoena, seems more and more significant in the context of what we're learning. What is your understanding of its significance and the legal ramifications as of now, as we've heard nothing from the Department of Justice?
Well, all these thousands of texts make the argument for why we need Mark Meadows to come in and testify to explain precisely what his role was. What was their attitude towards the violence on the streets? What was their plan? How far were they willing to take it in terms of trying to get Pence to reject electoral college votes from Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, perhaps Nevada and New Mexico, essentially vaporizing the votes of millions and millions of Americans? What was the plan there? And on what legal basis did they proceed when so many lawyers involved, including Attorney General William Barr, told them that their arguments were BS, that there was nothing there. There was no election fraud. There was no electoral corruption. And the constitutional arguments being mobilized were completely absurd. So on what basis did they proceed? Right. So we're waiting for former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows to come in and testify about it. That's why we filed our motion for summary judgment. And it's clear that the courts have taken the position that these claims of executive privilege are just fraudulent and specious, and there's nothing there. And there's an overwhelming need for the Congress of the United States, the representatives of the people, to get all of the information about what took place in the January 6th assault.